Hello, everyone, and welcome inside Time Warner Cable Arena. I'm Michelle McMahon. Coach Clifford, plenty of positives to build on from Game 3, but in your post-game press conference, you mentioned there were aspects of the game you would like to improve upon for Game 4. What would those be?
And then offensively, it was, obviously not having Nick as a factor in this, but, our efficiency went down considerably.
And in Nick Batum's absence, you went with a bigger lineup in Game 3. You indicated you plan to go with this lineup again in Game 4, but how do you anticipate the Heat counteracting that tonight? Now, within one game of evening out this series, what's the biggest key for your team to have success and get the equalizing game? Especially for a player like Frank Kaminsky, who went on an absolute tear in the third quarter, putting up 13 of his 15 points in the game to spark an 18-point run for his team. Kaminsky had 9 of those points. The Hornets went 6 for 13 from the field, perfect at the line. Here's head coach Steve Clifford for our Geico quote of the day of why they chose to post up Frank Kaminsky. Thanks, Eric. Jeremy, at one point this team trailed by 11 points. What established the turning point in the first half? You pride yourself on bringing energy to this team. How do you carry over that momentum into the second half? Thanks, Eric. Joining me now is Frank Kaminsky, and he had a couple of days off after a tough loss in Game 1. What was the biggest focus for this team in the last few days?
A big eraser in Hassan Whiteside, and he changes things for us a little bit. So we're just going to have to change up our game plan and do well.
How do you get to a guy like Hassan Whiteside, who leads the team in shot blocking but also proved to be lethal offensively? And for you on the offensive side of things, what was it about their defense that made it so difficult to break through offensively? Thanks, Eric. Well, Kemba Walker mentioned that Game 3 was one of the biggest wins in his 5-year career with the Hornets, and he said, we're not done yet. One is not enough for this team. He expressed his high level of confidence with this group. The crowd just erupted. You guys just got the equalizing game in the series. Describe what this win means to this team.
Oh, man. I'm so thankful, man. Put everything out there, and we're so glad we got the win. I'm so thankful.
How were you able to get the win tonight?
Good.
Describe how great the atmosphere was from your perspective in Game 4 tonight.
Awesome.
In the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls, MJ put up 63 points, which still stands as a playoff game record. The Celtics would go on to win that one in double OT and, of course, win the NBA Finals. But Jordan's jersey is retired here in Miami because the team president, Pat Riley, said his jersey should be retired in every arena, and he's the only. Spencer, your team brought the series within one game. Describe the energy level in this locker room heading into Game 4. What aspect of this team's game would you say is the biggest area to build upon for Game 4? Coach Clifford mentioned transition defense is something that needs to improve in Game 4. How do you do that best tonight? As we reflect back on this series as a whole, the odds were stacked against the Charlotte Hornets coming into Game 3 on Saturday, down 2 games to a red-hot Miami Heat, and not to mention without Nick Batum. But Game 3 proved to be an entirely different story for this. Thanks, Eric. Marvin, this team came into Game 3 down 2 games in this series, yet you guys came back in Game 3 and then Game 4. What did this win come down to?
It was huge. We knew they were going to be
twice in a row on your home court. How much did this team feed off of the atmosphere inside the Hive tonight?
It was huge.
A lot of your numbers don't necessarily show up in the box scores, but I saw you in the huddles just as fired up in it as everybody else. On the defensive side of the ball, what do you pride yourself on the most, particularly in Game 4 tonight?
Just knowing the coverages.
The Hornets looking to take home a win after the Miami Heat set a franchise playoff record in Game 1 after putting up 123 points, which was uncharacteristic for the Charlotte Hornets defense, who held teams to just 100 points all season long. What kind of adjustments do you anticipate the Heat making against a bigger lineup that you guys put out in Game 3? Coach Clifford went with a bigger lineup against the Heat successfully in Game 3. Why do you think going bigger was successful in that one?
We took care of business. We did the things that we didn't do in Game 1 and Game 2.
What specific areas of the game do you think you guys tidied up there in Game 3, as you mentioned?
I think
a big opportunity tonight to even out the series against this team at home. What's the key to victory here? Jeremy, readiness was a key for this team coming into this game. How do you get an early jump against a team like the Heat?